How Coronavirus Saved My Life, Episode 29, The Path. Mark Twain said it best. The two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. I thought my path in life was set in stone. I had a plan. My plan was to be married, obtain a psychiatric nurse practitioner degree, earn money doing what I love, build my dream home with my husband, and live happily ever after with my beautiful family. This is what I thought my path was. If someone were to tell me a year and a half ago, Christine, your life is going to take a new path. There's going to be a global pandemic. And Christine, not only are you going to be one of the ones to get the virus, you're going to have lingering symptoms for months. Oh, and Christine, you're going to have major epiphanies about your life while in quarantine after having a moment of facing mortality. Oh, and Christine, you're going to get divorced after 23 years because you're going to realize how unhappy you are. Oh, and Christine, it's not that you're just unhappy in your marriage. It's in all areas of your life. Oh, and Christine, you're going to have this major spiritual awakening and heal your symptoms by unwinding your childhood conditioning. But that's not it, Christine. You're going to start a podcast discussing how this same virus saved your life. Oh, and one last thing, Christine, you're going to make global connections with other podcasters who want to hear your story and vice versa. If someone were to tell me this a year and a half ago, this was going to be my path, I would have asked them, what pharmacy would you like me to send your medications to? I recently was a guest on a podcast where I was asked to tell my story of my coronavirus journey, my story of being raised by a racist alcoholic father, and how my family's deep-rooted racism deeply impacted my life and my path. I must admit, I was pleasantly stunned when this podcast host invited me to be on her show to tell my coronavirus story of being raised by a violent, racist alcoholic father. I was dumbfounded as to why an African-American woman living in Georgia would care about my family's ugly history of owning enslaved people. After recording our episode, and we continue to talk off the record for over an hour, I realized why she invited me on her show. So today, my guest is my new friend, bold sister, and fellow podcaster, the lovely Arlene Bolden-Korleh. Arlene, thank you so much for coming on my show today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. You don't even know.
I want to tell the listeners a little bit and viewers a little bit about who you are. And then I'm going to ask you why you created this podcast. So
Okay.
Arlene is the creator and podcast host of The Path. She is a certified speaker coach and consultant for the John Maxwell team. The Path podcast describes itself as our survival guide of bold sisters whose hopes and dreams take a detour, forcing disappointments to turning obstacles into opportunities. Arlene, do you know how much that speaks my language?
Oh, it should speak everyone's language because who doesn't have a story?
Well, what I love about that is like you're going to have disappointments, you're going to have ups and downs, like expect it, and then that's actually where your growth and your opportunity lies, is in the disappointment, the twists and the turns, the unexpected, the uncertainty. Like I have chills. I just love it so much. So I want to ask you, what inspired you to create this podcast?
Well, let me go back and still say thank you again for having me on your show. You were wondering why I called you. I'm like, why me? Even though I love talking to other bold women. And I'm like, I don't have a story, but of course I do.
Right.
Because I started the path because of my story. And what inspired me is because I went through a divorce myself, married 11 years, going on 11 years, and went through a divorce 2 years shy of us planning our little girl, giving birth to our little girl. And so after the divorce, after coming through it, it made me sit down and reevaluate my life, like you were saying earlier, because my favorite quote is by William McDonald. And he said, every problem introduces a person to himself or herself. And that is my favorite quote, because of that obstacle I went through, the divorce, I consider it an obstacle that I went through, my challenge. It made me have this bold way about myself. I'm like, at the time, I was, if I tell you how much I was making, and I was so afraid, we had to sell our house. We had to move my daughter and I into a new neighborhood, and he was more of the breadwinner, where my income was like less than half of his. So it was scary. And I was so mad. I would sit down and write every day, and I would sit here and write, and I'm like, I am not going to be in this position ever again. I am not going to let my daughter, when we move, I didn't want to live in a subpar neighborhood. I wanted to make sure my income was at a level where my daughter could still do the things I had planned for her. And I got mad. It made me mad. So I was mad at the situation. I was mad at him, mad at life. But of course, I'm still such an overall a positive person that I turned that anger for the first year. Now, I must admit, the anger was still kind of ugly, but but I turned it into something positive. And that positive thing is wanting to talk to more women and help other women, because I felt like if I felt this way, I know other women felt this way. Now, that happened many, many years ago, before I started the podcast, because I wanted to start blogging and different things like that. And then, life, you still just work, and I'm in corporate America. I got so busy, I kept pushing it to the side, but I kept writing. So when 2020 happened, I'm like, it's time. It's now or never. So
I love that. And I listened to that episode. That's one thing that our connection is, we're very transparent. We're like, this truth sucks, but this is it. I mean, this is what our thoughts and our feelings and our emotions. And I don't remember if you explained this, but I just got this feeling like you had this dream, right? And you go to church and you're religious and all that kind of stuff. And so I imagine there was this thing like, you had this dream of getting married, the typical, like, let's get married and have a baby. And that had to be crushing for you. Yes.
It was crushing, especially when you sit here and you plan, you try to do it what I consider the right way, meaning my dad threatened us as me and my sister. I don't know why he didn't threaten my brother, but he told us when we were younger, okay, you get pregnant, you're gonna raise your own child. So, I've always, that always stuck in my head, even as an adult. I didn't have my daughter until I was 30. So, we were married like 8 years before we decided to have her, 8-9 years. So, because we were just young in our 20s, living and having fun. And I'll still say to this day, nice guy, I can say that today, but we were just living and having fun. And then finally, okay, we all started, me and my friends, we're starting to have families. We planned this little girl, and then this happens. Oh, it was crushing to you.
Yeah, that. How old were you when you got married?
I was 21.
Okay. And how old were you when you met him?
We met about 19, because we were in college.
Yeah. Okay. The reason I'm asking that for a reason, obviously, but because it's funny, because similar to you. So I married my prom date. I always called him the prom date from hell, because he never left. I married my prom date, and we got married at 19, and it was just like, because he was joining the army for me to get benefits, blah blah blah. And we both were kind of like, it's us against the world, and whatever, struggling. And but what we did is we had these goals, career goals and house goals. And we weren't even going to have kids. That was a oops, but totally fine. And after 12 years, and then like, once we got the dream, it was like, why are we unhappy? But what's interesting about my ex, I mean, we're friends, we're fine, and I mean, I was so angry at him, because I felt he abandoned the family and walked away so easily with not even a tear coming out of his eye. And which he may have cried in private, I don't know, but maybe he didn't feel worthy of his life. I don't know. I can't speak for him, but what's interesting is there will be times I'm like, why don't I like him? Like now, like, I'm like, I was married to him for a very long time. I've known him since I was a teenager, and I was like, why can't I not stand him? Like, I used to be attracted to him, all these things. And then I realized, your brain doesn't develop fully till you're 25, your personality and your brain. And I was like, well, no wonder, because our brains weren't even developed, And so now I'm like, okay, so then I just take a breath and I go, that was my other brain. This is my new brain. We're all good.
Exactly.
It's fascinating. So what, so were you blind? So tell the listeners, can you tell them briefly a little journey of like what happened of your divorce? Like what happened?
Okay. So you know what, let me tell you, I know you probably heard it if they listened to my episode 1. I went through, I like to set up the timing. It was Thanksgiving. We were going through our little issues and different things like that. And I remember we were headed home to my family for Thanksgiving. And I knew things weren't great, but still we were, I felt like we were trying to work it out because we were talking and we've spoken to other people and who were trying to like parents of ours talking to us about marriage. But it was during that time, I know I was talking to him, I was feeding my daughter. I can remember feeding my daughter. And I asked him, I'm like, when you think you want to have another baby, a second child? And he said, he looked at me and he's like, I don't think I want any more kids. I mean, I don't think I don't think I want any more, something like to that, to that regard. And I'm like, I looked at him, I'm like, really? So it startled me because I know we had at some point talked about having at least 2. And I'm like, you don't want any more kids? He said, no, I don't think we should have any more. So with all the stuff I think that was going on, it kind of like made me sit here and it's like, okay, this is really bad. So from that, I packed our stuff up. We were at my sister's. I packed my stuff up. We came back to Atlanta that same day and didn't know anything at that point. And he and I, this is the wonderful thing about when you can have a great relationship today with the person, because even when the podcast came out and I told my truth, I told the truth that I believe it was infidelity. And he said he didn't agree. And
interesting response.
Of course. But I told him it was my truth. And I know that I feel like that to be the truth. And, so I want to be fair to everyone, let everyone hear that he's saying that's not true, but it was infidelity to me. And,
right.
And so that's what it was.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to stay in something that's not good for me.
Right. Correct. And did you at that time when first of all, how did you respond to him when were you just shocked? How did you respond when he said that? Do you remember?
I was like, I just looked at him. I don't want to go and those, I really just like looked at him with like, okay, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I'm feeding my daughter now. So she's in my arms. She's a little girl, toddler still. Not quite 2. And I said, like, really? And I'm like, I did ask why, but it hit me so in my gut where I think I kind of knew something was wrong. It was really not good.
Yeah.
I know, the person. You had been like, even with your ex, I had been with him for at least by that time, 11, 12 years, even if we were married less than that. I knew him well enough. I knew something was wrong. Like I said, we were already going through some issues. Your partner, when it feels like they're a different person. Yeah. And so that was just, I think, the straw that broke the camel's back. I think that's the same. Yeah. So I just told him, I'm like, well, I'm not going to my dad's because again, we were at my sister's about to go to my dad's that day of Thanksgiving. The one thing I said in that podcast, I don't know how to lie to my family. I'm not taking you around my family like this is this loving family and we're going to go sit in front of.
Because you're authentic. You're authentic.
Yeah,
no matter authentic. What it is, you're like, I'm authentic.
Yes. I can't pretend.
No.
And I told him, I said, I don't want to, let's go back to Atlanta. And he was like, what? I said, no, I'm not going to lie to my family. I'm not going to go sit in their face and
pretend to be happy.
Yeah. No. Packed up our stuff. I told my sister, she didn't ask no questions. She just said, be careful. She knew something was wrong. Yeah. I think I kind of told her a little bit, but she knew something was wrong. She just said, be careful.
Yeah.
Because I was in someone else's home, so I couldn't really react the way I wanted.
Right.
I think when we got back to Atlanta is when I
yeah,
really showed that other side of me. That I'm so glad that I don't do today.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
Well, and the thing is we that was blindsided, and I'm just assuming, I don't know, but my thought is like all those hopes and dreams just came crashing, and
Crashing
it was
down.
not just him that was killing your dream,
Dream.
right? It
That's
was
it.
that thing that you had in your mind of how your life was going to go. It was killed.
Yes. And to your point with that, like you said, you have those plans. He and I was living a decent life. We had a nice home. We had the nice, I don't want to go on materialistic things.
Right.
Young. So that's where we had a decent life. We were living comfortably for a young couple. And like you said, it all came crashing down.
Yeah.
I kind of like when we had her, my thing is, okay, my husband is the one, he's traveling, he's doing business. I'm working, but I'm not trying to be the next, I'm just going to say CEO of the company, because I'm just so happy I have my little girl, and I'm just happy to raise my family. Let him go be great. And even though I know I would have gotten back to that because that's who I am. Right. I am a business oriented type person, but I was fine with the place I was at. So those it came crashing. Crashing down.
And I have so much gratitude for that too.
Yeah.
I have so much gratitude for all of that he did, whether he cheated, doesn't matter, but crushing your dreams, because you reinvented yourself and something even better than what you had in your minds.
Yes.
And how beautiful that is, and healing and that kind of stuff. Like that's one thing with my ex, is that I was, the duality of it. Like I was so hurt, and I still occasionally am like, why the hell did he just walk out like that? Like, it's just like, he just walked out, and that's not fully true. He kind of actually did linger for a while, and I was like, you need to leave because I can't heal, and he left, and I was like, why did he leave? You know what I mean? Like, what the hell?
That's what we do. Yeah, that's what we do.
But anyways, but I was so grateful for him doing that, because he allowed me to heal, and I discovered, I had no idea that this was going to be who I was and am, and all these things. I had no idea that, first of all, I've talked about my childhood on your podcast, and there was no way in hell I could ever express how I felt. There was always a consequence and punishment. And now that I'm doing it on this like public, I'm sorry, I think it's badass. Like now I'm like, man, that is really, I was like, that's really scary. I'm really scared. I'm like, hopefully my mom won't hear it. And now I'm just like, she's getting on my social media, just trying to terrorize me. But I'm just like, bring it, whatever. It's like, and there's nothing stopping me now, and there's nothing stopping you.
Let me tell you what I heard. One friend, she was on my podcast too. She has a great book, and I can't think of it, but I'm gonna tell you, her name is Letitia B. Russell. She said in her book that she had some issues that went on where she went through in her childhood, but she said she had, and I asked her, how did she feel about maybe her family members hearing it, and the story, when she had to tell the story, she said, well, I was made to be uncomfortable for years. She said it was about time for some other people to be uncomfortable. I'm like, you're right, into what you were saying about, your mom hearing it. And when she said that, I'm like, it's true. As a little girl, she went through so much. And so she said, no, she's, I'm screaming all of my truth right now. So, and it's not to hurt nobody. And thankfully, I think it was never to hurt anybody, but she was just saying, it's time for other people to be uncomfortable. That's her healing.
And their reactions of a reflection of them, like, right. If they're like, well, that didn't happen. How about, I'm sorry that happened to you, or that you feel that way. What can I do? You know what I'm saying? Like, but those people don't have awareness or insight or whatever, or if they're narcissists, they love it. They want to cause pain. How long have you been divorced for?
Ooh, I'm gonna tell my age, everybody. I've been divorced now, and it's a good thing. I like to forget. It's been, believe it or not, at least 20 years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, because it was like 32, about 20 years. Because we had my daughter at 30, about 32 when I went through my divorce, and so y'all see I'm in my 50s now.
Yeah, I love it though. Looking like me and Tyler Moore over there with that haircut. But yeah, so what do you feel like, okay, so because we all have like our roles that we played and stuff. I'm like, so my thing, it's funny because I'm like, he was disconnecting from me. He ignored me. I told him, these are 3 things I just need for 2 years. I just need a hug. Tell me it's going to be okay. Tell me you're sorry. And he couldn't do any of it, you know, and he was, again, not to beat a dead horse, he was obsessed with Donald Trump, hating him. And he like took on Donald Trump traits and stuff. But I also had accountability too, right? Yes. Like not once during that time did I say, what do you think I need to work on? Not one time, Arlene, did I ask him, what do you think? And I look and, you know, I'm like, how intimidating that must be, you know, to be like, you need to do this and you need to do that. You know what I mean? Like, why would anybody want to do any of that? You know what I mean? Right?
Agree. I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Because it's the same with me. I thankfully, and I want to wait to see if you're going to, you know, if I answer, you know, ask if you wanted to ask me a question, but I felt the same way. My ex, he, you know, I wanted more from him, and I felt like he was distant, and he was, you know, just doing things like he was, to me, sometimes he was living like he was still single. I mean, well, we didn't have any children. Let me say it that way.
Yeah.
That's what it was. It was like, he wanted to still go here. And I'm like, we have a little girl at home now. We can't do that because in all his defense, we were always doing stuff together. So it wasn't like he was always going, but we would do it as, you know, a young couple with no kids. We were always gone every weekend. So of course, when we had her, it's like, I'm looking for us now to be Saturday sit at home family, or go do something with the family. You know, we could still do things. But still, so that's what he was always wanting to go. And it was beginning to be too much. And I think maybe with the go, it was probably meeting people and, you know, and that type thing. But then to your point, like you said, Arlene, I looked at myself later on after going through the divorce, and I'm like, Arlene, you had a mouth on you. So you weren't perfect, you know, right. I used to always, this is the way I'll tell people now, I think some of that was the catalyst for it ending, but still, Arlene, you could have worked on a whole lot more yourself. You could have been a little bit more softer with your tone and what you say and how you say it and what you did. So Arlene needed to work on Arlene as well.
Yeah. I love that you brought that up, because I listened like yesterday, episode 23. It was your January episode about your 2 goals, restore and listening. Girl, that was listening. I didn't do restore, but I'm gonna do it now. But listening, because I recognize that I really just want to give people advice. Like I just want to like help. This is what you do, because you and I are probably very similar. Like we can see the vision, how to fix it in 2 seconds, right? And like the first, like, because somebody says, you know, oh, I'm having problem with X, Y, and Z, and then immediately I go, this is how they fix it, and then they start going on and on. I'm like, well, that first sentence, that's all. Everything else is details, you know. And so, but I recognize, I actually bought this painting with a bird called The Listener, because I really like need to work on listening, because people can't figure their stuff out if you're just giving them the stuff, giving them the answers. And we always feel like we got to fix everything and give advice, even as parents, like with my daughter, like she comes home and maybe she's talking about a bully that she saw doing something or something crazy. You know, a lot of parents, we want to just go, oh, well, you need to do this and you need to do that. Just listen, because actually what I found is when you just listen, because we don't have to do anything. Just listen. And what I found is you actually get to know your child even better when you just listen.
I wish I had met you years ago. My daughter would have said, could you please tell my mother to do that, Christine? See, at least your baby is younger, because my daughter to this day, and I've learned now where she said, Mom, sometimes I just want to, I don't want you to, when I tell you something, I don't want is for you to tell me something back or give me advice or tell me to do this. So I wish I really had done that. And it makes me feel like I'll look at her like, I'm sorry. Was I bad, Mom? Did I do that? Did I make you feel a certain way at 10, 12? But you know, I got it now. So I'm so glad you said that, because especially with our kids, we have to do that.
Yeah. And you were saying, I'm sorry. And we're always apologizing for everything. So what I say, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Because actually, like if somebody gives you a compliment, like, oh, I like that shirt. It took me 2 years to train my brain to say thank you, because I could never say it. I would be like, oh, this thing I got off of Amazon, whatever, you know.
Yes.
But when you say thank you, the dopamine levels in your brain immediately go up, whether you believe it or not. So just say thank you. Like I just start saying thank you all the time. Because I
But
mean, I
thank
was
you
one of
for
those
that.
people that like apologizing all the time for
Yeah.
everything. And I'm like, it's not everything's my damn fault. You know what I
Exactly.
mean?
And it's
Like,
not. And they say women got a problem doing that. Women are saying
right,
sorry, even though
right,
I know you're not, but we got a habit of saying it.
right, right. And your daughter's saying, I just wish she would listen. And then you go, oh, I'm sorry. It's
Yes.
again, it's like she's not getting that space because now she's got to make you feel better, right? You know what I
Exactly.
mean? Yeah.
Oh, thank you for that because of course I was getting to that place to stop, but I'm glad you said that part. So
Yeah,
thank you for that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Anytime. So yeah, your thing about listening, I was like, there's so many things. I love your solo episodes. Those are like, I'm so addicted to them. I was
Oh,
listening to the one earlier about like when you look in the mirror, wink at yourself, because
yes.
yeah, because like I had stepped down my hours at work and I was working at home and I like gained some weight and I was in my routine and I was like, so I'm like, oh, I'm going to
Yeah.
listen to that episode every morning to inspire me, by the way. I love it.
Hey, look back and wink at yourself. Just wink at
Yeah,
yourself.
wink. Because I've done that before. I like, oh, I look good. And then I'll turn back and I'll go, disgusting. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a
Exactly.
Leo. We're very hard on ourselves.
Hey, exactly.
Yeah. So let's kind of start from the beginning, like your background, like you tell the listeners kind of like what state you're from and how you ended up in Atlanta and all that and your career path. We know about you getting married and stuff, but kind of like what your childhood was like and stuff.
Okay. I am a small town country girl, is what I love to say, from South Carolina, and raised in a family of five: my dad, my mom, my father, and my siblings, my sister and brother. And in our neighborhood was all family. It was just family. It was, if I had to tell it, it was just the perfect little country place. And perfect little country place with a whole bunch of other stuff that I kind of saw on the outside later,
Mm.
but I didn't know that's what it was, that we may talk about later, but still perfect. I would come home from school, can go down, lay down, take a nap with the front door open.
Wow.
And yeah, you felt safe. It felt like a safe little haven where a bunch of family just lived around each other. And my mother passed when I was 12, but my mother passed when I was 12. Well, I was 12. My siblings were a little bit older. And when that happened, that was like my first obstacle. I would tell people, what child expects to lose their mother? And I was so attached to my
That was
mother.
like the first time your dream was crushed.
That's the first time my dream was crushed. Even I had someone told me how I deal with some things. I may go back to that 12-year-old little girl who first, who that's my first time ever experiencing pain and crushing of something in life.
Did she die unexpectedly?
Unexpectedly.
Oh,
Yes.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, unexpectedly. And so of course my dad raised us. And like I said before, but we were surrounded by nothing but love and nothing but family. And what it taught me is how to be that same way to my godson, who his mother, my best friend, my soulmate of a sister, of a friend, passed, and he was 12 as well. It's crazy how life happens. For me to be 12 and then for her son to be 12. And it made me, but because of the love I had around me when my mother passed, it taught me, they showed me what I needed to do for him.
That's
And
beautiful.
even though his father raised him, I had to be there in his life consistently, even though he has a wonderful group of family, her family as well. But I knew what I had to do on my end. So that was that. But I was raised in South Carolina, went to college in South Carolina, and that's where I met my then husband. And we decided we were going to come to Atlanta. He graduated 2 years before I did, so he had already moved to Atlanta. And I remember that year I graduated, I said I was going to stay home with my dad because I was the baby. My sister had already moved to Augusta, Georgia, and my brother, he was still at home. And I said my brother he was married by that time. And I said I was going to stay with my dad for the rest of the summer and then move to Atlanta. In South Carolina, there is nothing to do. For a young 19-year-old, nothing to do. 18, really. 18-year-old night, 21. a 21-year-old, it's nothing to do.
Yeah. If you have the
So
choice
I'm
between
like,
South Carolina and Atlanta, I think I'm going to choose Atlanta.
thank you. So I called my ex-husband at the time. I was like, come get me.
Yeah.
It's time to go. So
Yeah.
he came and got me, came to Atlanta, and never looked back. But I love going home. We go
Yeah.
home often. I lost my dad in 2020, but we go back home because that's where our family is. And I love going because it's like everything stops.
Yeah.
Where the birds chirp.
Living in the moment. That's beautiful. I love that.
Living the moment when you go
Yeah.
back home. And I
Let
love
me
it.
ask you this. I don't even know how to actually word this. I'm going to just word it what my brain says. Was it weird to be raised just by a dad?
No, because it's just like, well, as a child, because you don't expect to lose your mother.
Right. Right.
Because especially when you're so attached and he was the one working outside of the home, it just felt different that way. It didn't feel different because he was my dad. It just felt different because I didn't expect to lose my mother.
Right.
That's the only. That's the only.
It's like like, where do you go? And you're 12, and it's not, it's other people, and everybody's going through their own grieving.
Yes.
And, I've had on my previous episodes where I've had African-American people talk about, like, in their community, like they don't talk about, death or, suicide, just different things. Like it's through osmosis. Is your family like that? Or did y'all discuss things?
Yeah. I don't think I ever heard suicide, if it had ever happened around me.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about it.
Interesting.
Yeah. I would love for my sister to say if she did because she was older. Yeah. But yeah, it would seem like it was nothing ever that was a conversation that we just really talked about.
Yeah.
A new thing to know. Yeah. I don't think I knew to talk about it if I did.
Yeah. Did your family tell you your mother died?
Yes.
Okay. Because one of the therapists I had on, Danny Ross, he was like, I didn't even know my dad had died. I was 5. No one told me. He was like, they just thought it was going to come through osmosis, Yeah. And so, I just love hearing like other people's like stories and stuff. Because everyone has their own unique story.
Of course.
Yeah.
So they told us. Yeah. I mean, of course, because even my mom passed 2 days after Christmas.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah. 2 days. And so the day we went to go visit her, she and I, her siblings, my siblings and her father at the time who was alive and all her siblings. So we were going to spend Christmas with her that day. That's the day we found out that the doctors wasn't expecting her to survive. At least for me. That's when they told all of us in a room. I don't know if my dad was getting more information at the time, but yeah.
Wow.
And it's a time. It's a time.
Yeah. Were you really close with your mom?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I was so close to my mother when I was I remember in kindergarten, I lied. I would lie that I was sick so I could come back home. I didn't want to go to school.
So opposite from my childhood. I ran away. Like to the creek behind the house.
Oh yeah. I was attached to her.
Yeah.
I remember it's so funny. Let me tell you, I didn't even know how to get home. My brother had to tell the nurse and tell them how to for me because that was South Carolina, so they drove you home.
Yeah, that is cool. I love that.
So,
I love that.
Yeah, I was attached to her. Yes.
So I was on your podcast and I was talking about my story of being raised by a racist father and like, my God, it just, driving around he was so angry all the time anyways, but it always seems to start at a gas station. I don't know why. I guess getting gas like triggered him or something, but and then we'd be like trying to get out of the gas station and then, there'd be like a car of African-American people. And I guess he perceived them cutting them off and then just start screaming at them.
Yeah.
So growing up in the South Carolina, did you ever experience people saying the N-word to you?
You will be surprised. I have never in my face can remember anybody ever saying anything to me using the N-word.
That is beautiful.
And I'm thankful too for that as well. Yeah. Even going into my adult years to this day, if I can tell you I can hear somebody saying it to me in my face, no.
Yeah.
I've never heard it. Yeah. And I think that's why things shocked me still with life to just, I knew there were differences, but still it was not like it was I was confronted with it, unfortunately, like I know so many of my other sisters and brothers have, not
Yeah.
my literal, my siblings, but people just that I know that I'm very
Yeah.
close to.
Yeah.
So for me, no.
Yeah. That's so fascinating because I was one thing, I was like, I wonder like how people, I mean, I guess with any sort of anyone saying derogatory thing towards you, I
Yeah,
mean, but that is kind of a different twist, you know?
of course. Of course.
Like, so the people that you know that, I mean, how do you react? How do people react to that normally? Like, I mean, I don't know, there's no book on how to react to that, but I'm just curious. Like,
Exactly.
you just walk away? Do you say, what do you start fighting? Like, what happens?
Exactly. You know what? I'm trying to think of some of the people, even like my brother. I think my brother's the nicest man in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody loves my brother. I've never heard my brother even share stories with me. I'm not saying it's not
Mm-hmm.
happened to him because we
Mm-hmm.
just don't talk about it,
Yeah.
as much like that, unless something is happening in the news, like is happening so much more you hear.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people I've spoken to, oh yeah, you say it, they're going to come back at you. They're going to come back at you with some people. It's different. It's along the lines. Some come back right back at you raw
Yeah.
with ugliness. Others understand and know to rise above it. Some may take that approach. Michelle Obama, you go low. When they go low, we go high.
Yeah.
And some people just understand you have to be in that moment to
Mm-hmm.
understand where you are and understand if what comes first, your safety, or you having to just to
Yeah.
try to defend yourself against a word that is not who you are.
Right.
See, that's
Right.
one thing I've told my daughter. It's not who you are.
Yeah.
It's a reflection of them. So that's why
That was
it's
one
a
of the
word.
questions I had
Yeah.
was yeah, because like in your family, because I'm just curious, like,
Yeah.
is it something that you talk about, like this may happen, or you just live your life and then things happen and you're like, can't believe that happened, like,
Yeah.
you know?
That's how it was. And believe it or not, even for my dad, who I know experienced it, to be 88 when he passed, 89, I know he experienced it. But believe it or not, we didn't sit there and talk about it.
That's amazing. I love
Yeah.
that.
We
Because
didn't
that
talk
didn't
about it.
define who you are, and that's not your identity. Those are
Exactly.
those people,
Yes.
obviously.
Yes. And I'm
Um,
not saying we never, and maybe he and my sister were very close. She's the oldest. So I'm
mhm,
pretty sure they may have had more conversations, but yeah, those are just not conversations we've had, even though we've sat there and watched news and saw things.
mhm.
And he's probably said, that it's wrong. He don't like it.
Yeah.
But my dad was never out of character to just like blow up just because we
That
heard
is
stuff.
beautiful. I mean, that's just so opposite from my
Yeah.
father. Your mother and father are the complete opposite. They're like the yin and the yang duality, like the complete opposite. Because you say the one wrong thing to my dad, he's going to freak out on you, a
Exactly.
ticking time bomb. So I love hearing that. I just,
But don't get me wrong. Let me tell you, my dad was that one who you don't play with, though.
well, we all have
Everybody
our
knew, don't
limits,
come to
Arlene.
John Bolden's house like you're gonna come in there and take over anything.
Yeah.
And that's what
Yeah.
I love. We were so safe. We felt with him, as well as we
Mhm.
knew he was not the man to play with.
I love that you felt safe with
Yeah.
your father. I
Yeah.
love
Yes.
that. I love
Yeah.
hearing that. That is awesome. I love that. I love it. So then you moved to Atlanta,
Yeah. Moved to Atlanta,
and then
and
kind of what was your plan after that? You got married, and then did you get married
yes,
in Atlanta?
we got married. Believe it or not, we got married. I was finishing school and got married, and I was kind of like already, we were married, and we had a wedding later on, and we had the big shindig because I didn't, be honest, say I had it on paper that we were married already.
Yeah.
So we planned the wedding later on. So when I came, yes, we were married, and definitely then we did the just start our lives. We just started our lives when he came and got me in. We just started living and enjoying life because the same friend that passed, she and her husband and me and my husband, we were all best friends. So we all hung
Right.
out. We did everything together. So we were just living what we felt like just what we call our best life, just
Yeah.
enjoying life as in our 20s.
Yeah.
So, and just trying to and write, and work and trying to get to that next level. I took the law school exam, failed it miserably. All the different things because I'm a talker. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer, and But I'm like, I realized I definitely didn't want to do that again. So, we're just trying to find that where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
with my husband at the time.
That's
So,
funny.
yeah.
I had a semester where I wanted to be a lawyer and I took one law class and I was like, hell no, this is boring. I'm falling asleep. When do we get to the part where we put them in jail? Like where's the sentencing part? You know what I mean? Like I was ready for that.
Christine, you were like, I just wanted to get in court and argue.
Yeah, I did debate. Yeah, whatever.
Debate the whole time. And when I realized I had to do research, really?
Oh, yeah. Boring.
That's what I'm like,
boring.
I'm not going to go study more. Yeah.
Yeah. So what kind of career did you go into? Was it talked about with your husband? Like, oh, I'm going to do this, a little bit of this. You're going to be the breadwinner. You're going to be, like, did y'all have like a plan for that?
No plan. We were just both supporting each other just to do what we were doing. So he supported me, I supported him because he was into the computer technology world. And my first job, it was funny, but my first real job, I'll say, was with a big box retailer, which is that's all I'll say.
That's crazy. My dad used to work for a boxing company. There's so much synchronicity. It's crazy.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's a big box retailer now. It's a retail company. Okay, okay.
Yep.
So in there I was trying to grow in my being in business, so trying to grow and rise the ranks of, like going like manager to director, but I didn't make it like that. It didn't happen for me that way. Yeah. And so, I got hit in the face pretty hard because I thought out of college I was going to be making six figures. That didn't happen. And so I remember, let me tell you this, in this big box retailer, I remember the CEO used to, at the time, come into some of our meetings, our lunch and learns. And I'm gonna tell you this is how I feel like I dealt with the reverse racism in different ways. So at this company, this CEO, and I'll still give him credit to this day, I approached him, they were approachable, and this is a big company. And I told him, I said, I'm trying to get around marketing. What can I do to get into this field? And blah, 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 blah. And he told me, he said, okay. He told the person with him, he said, set up a meeting with this young lady, get her information and set it up with this VP of this department. And I said, wonderful. So, me, a little young kid, excited, like, okay, I'm going to get in my area of marketing. Okay. Meeting set up, sat in this VP's office, telling him my hopes and dreams again. That man looked at me like, I ain't gonna say the words on your show, but it to me, he made it look like he said, B, I am only, or even maybe the other word, I am only sitting in here because this man told me to sit in here. You are wasting my time. It's like it's like disgust. It was disgust to me. And I promise you, when I would tell that story, sometimes it used to make me want to cry. Yeah. Because it was so disappointing. I was so, feel the disgust. Like I said, to me, that was almost like the reverse way of thinking. You're just looking at me like I'm this black chick just sitting here. Yeah.
Well, my stomach started turning because that's the way my father would, that's like a way my father would be. Like, that's how he would be. Like, So
that's where I felt like, to me, I've dealt with it. I felt like I've dealt with it in business, and I felt like I've dealt with it that way. They didn't say it to my face, but I'm a good judge of people. And I'm not saying I want to put that on anyone, because I don't want to ever assume about anybody, because that's wrong. But still, you get that feel of people. I know I should have been way in other positions in that company.
Yeah, right. Do you think it was because you're a woman, or because you're black, or a combo?
A combo. And not even the combo first. It was black first. A lot of not everybody. Not everybody.
Yeah.
But because some of them were as a woman, because like some of the companies I work around even to this day, I believe is woman first in some of those cases. But that one, in those cases, a lot of times there, I believe it was that. Because I would sit after I didn't get some positions, I would call back and say, tell me what I need to do. Because I wanted to challenge you to say,
okay. What would they say?
Oh, they'll be like, oh no, we just chose, because it was this one position I knew I had the experience for. And
Mhm.
I asked him, what do I need to do? What can help me so I can improve on my interviewing skills? Maybe I'm doing something wrong. And they'd be
Wow.
like, well, no, we just found somebody, we just hired somebody with more experience and blah, 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 blah. That was just the general information, because I knew I had the experience.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you found that one other thing that person may have had to say, and trust me, I'm not saying I don't take that away from anybody, because I always say I want everybody to win. I
Yeah.
really do.
Yeah.
And I'm okay if they won, as long as you judge us equally,
Yeah. Yeah.
And-
And those people, and that guy, like with the boxing company, like, I mean, at first I'm like disgusted. Now I actually have gratitude for him for doing that, because he put an obstacle. He's like, that's a no for you, because
Yes.
that's not where your life path is supposed to go.
Exactly.
Why would you don't want to work around people like that?
Yes.
I was listening to your episode about where you got laid off 3 different times. I mean, I started getting so anxious. I was like, what did she, how did she, because then you were like, the first layoff, I got a severance package. The second one I did. And I was like, what? And my head chills again. And I was
Yes.
like, okay, oh my gosh, what she, and I mean, that was just so, how did you handle getting late? Cause you were getting divorced, or you were single at the time?
I was divorced already by those times.
So it was all up to you.
Yes.
All up to you.
Mhm.
And how did you, I know you said you prayed a lot and you just trusted God, which is so freaking awesome.
Yes.
But I mean, there are those times where like laying in bed and like just anxious. Like, how did you deal with that?
Yeah. Let me tell you, trust me, I said I prayed. Don't make it seem like it was simple, because I know I always tell people I make God laugh, and he's like, what now, Arlene?
Yeah. Yeah.
Really? I get on his nerves. I know I do, because I'm not perfect,
because you never shut up.
That's it. So the first time, like I said, I got the package, so that was good. And that was from that big box retailer, believe it or not. The second time, and the third time, I didn't get one. I promise you, I always tell people the way I did it, I went into broke mode. It's like, okay, Arlene, this is the only income this was the only income coming into this house. I was anxious. I was scared. I tell you, because I'm such I promise you this, and I don't try to make this sound like it's easy.
You're right.
Because I try to find the positive in everything.
Right.
Even for that second one, I said, Lord, I didn't do anything wrong. I was good at what I did.
Yeah, I know. I love that. You were like,
you have to talk yourself up to say, I know I was good at what I did.
Yeah.
I said, so God, you're gonna have to fix this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I used to always say, God, I know you didn't bring me and my daughter here to leave us. I used to always say that. I know you didn't bring us here to leave us.
Mm-hmm.
I need something to happen. So let me tell you, I was dealing with my mortgage company back and forth, going back and forth with them, because I'm like, we need to do something. I don't have any income coming in. And then I was sitting here nervous, because I wanted to make sure I had insurance still. And my daughter was on her dad's insurance, so I know she was covered, which, that was an added, relief. But for me, I started to play, you know how high that Cobra is. That Cobra is
yes,
crazy.
yes, yeah.
And I remember a friend told me, she's like, Arlene, don't pay for that. You can go to the clinic. And I'm like, I don't want to go to the clinic. So what I did is I really just kept dealing with my mortgage company. My mortgage company was going to work with me. And finally, I just kept praying and said, Lord, you're going to have to fix this. So
it's up to you. I've already done my part. You get on your stuff, right?
Exactly. You God. So please be God.
Yeah.
And to me, he showed me himself. That's why I said I would tell anybody. And trust me, I don't like to be that pseudo kind of Christian, like, just pray everything happens your way. It don't always happen unless it's in his plan to me.
Right.
So my thing is, so I remember me and my daughter went home for spring break to my dad's, spent some time with him, came back, and I promise you, my mortgage company dropped my mortgage down to $5 a month for 6 months. I always tell people that's nobody to me but a God who did that, because people can still say, and I don't try to push my faith on nobody.
Yeah.
People can say themselves, no, Arlene, it just happened because you were working with them. Yeah, he tell us to do the work.
Yeah.
I was supposed to do the work, but I rely on him to do the parts that I can't do. So I give him credit for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me tell you my experience, because you're speaking my language right now. Okay. Because you've heard my podcast, like God is love. We all have God inside of us. We're all love. We're all connected by
Yes.
love consciousness, all that stuff.
Mhm.
But the thing is that as humans in our ego brain, we want to predict outcomes of things. We want
Yes.
to try to control, we want to try to do all these things instead of surrendering and trust. Because what happens is when we surrender and trust, because
Mhm.
you were like, it's up to you,
Yes.
fix it, dude, like fix
Mhm.
it.
Exactly.
And then it got fixed, right?
Fix it.
And that's one thing that, like, when I'm like doing my manifestation stuff, I forgot that part. And when I stopped predicting outcomes, I can't even tell you, opportunities and just amazing things have happened. And so I just stopped predicting outcome. This is
Mhm.
because what happens too is you get something even greater than did you even think you were going to get a mortgage that was me
No,
$5? Right,
no,
right, right. Had
no,
no idea, had no
none.
idea.
It shocks me to this day still when I talk
Yeah,
about it.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's so freaking cool,
Mhm. Mhm.
that's really cool. So then you
Yeah.
got laid off a third time?
And I got laid off a third time.
And then
I
what?
tell you,
Then at this point, are you just like, I'm exhausted? Like, like, what do you do?
but let me tell you what I did learn. I said, okay, Laura, you did it once, you'll do it again. And so they say that's what you build off of the sales.
Yeah.
He did it for me before, he'll do it again.
Yes.
So luckily with that one, I didn't go as long. I still just trusted him. And
Mm-hmm.
I think within that one, within 2 to 3 months, I still went into a job. And I had already, because that had happened to me, it taught me to kind of put money to the side.
Oh, to
I'm
budget
that
and
one.
save and plan.
Yes. Then when they
Yeah.
always say,
Yep.
Dave Ramsey always say, this is 6 months of, I don't think I have that much now. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I always put money to the side, and
Yeah.
it helped me to give me that comfort.
Yes.
I'm scared it kind of holds me. You got to be careful with that, because it kind of stifle you from doing other things than when you're supposed to, because you're afraid of that. When this happens, if this happens, I need to feel like I'm protected.
Right.
So, but yeah, so I was okay until I went right into another job. So luckily I went into another job, like I said, in about 2 months. Yeah. But I had some kind of like a cushion.
That's awesome. So how did you get the idea to do a podcast? Like, did you listen to podcasts and go, I want to do that? Or did your daughter go, hey, like, how did you say, I'm going to do a podcast? I know why, but like, why did you do a podcast? Like, why that avenue?
Because let me tell you, back in that day, y'all, since I'm saying, it's been some years, it was blogging more then. I know people still do blog, because like you got your blog, but it was blogging. But because I'm more of a talker, we knew podcasts were bigger. And I'm like, okay, Arlene, you don't want to write as much as you want to talk. I'm a talker. I'm trying to get paid talking because I love to talk. I tell my sister and brother that for years, because they're so different from me in that regard.
Really?
They talk as much as I do.
Yeah.
And they laugh at me. And I told my brother, I'm going to do what I love doing, talking. So I told him that years ago. So instead of doing the blog and when podcasts, we know it's been big years ago, I'm like, bam, it's going to be a podcast.
Yeah.
I can talk. So that's why podcast now. I decided to do the podcast instead of.
That's awesome.
Blogging. Yeah. And I knew I wanted to talk to people. I wanted to deal with people. So podcasting was the next best thing for me.
Yes. And tell the listeners and the viewers about your coaching. What kind of coach are you, and like, what do you help people with?
Now, I am a life coach, more of a life coach in those regards. So what I do is we can, help people try to move forward from these obstacles, and, give some life applications of how you can do that. And mine comes more of it from experience. I always tell people I would recommend you go to a therapist.
Yes.
Train in their profession, because I don't take nothing from them at all. Psychiatrists, psychologists, all the ones who really know how the brain really works and help them. I'm just that one who can tell you, I know experiencing layoffs, and I know how I had to turn that pain into something positive for myself. I know it's an attitude thing as well. Yeah. So in that regard, I can help some people and just to talk life through. And you just need like a sister to talk to. Yes. I'm your girl. Yes. And, if you just need someone to kind of say, Arlene, how do you handle this situation? How do you handle, because I I deal with a lot of people who have gone through things that I volunteer to do. And I just know I know what divorce feels like. So I know
Yes.
how to help you and tell you I understand how you feel.
Yeah.
I know when you want to curse the person out for a whole year
Yes.
straight, which I
Yes.
did.
Yes. Yeah.
Every time I talk to him, but then I can turn it around and say, but it was wrong. And you know,
Yeah.
that was my truth. I did it. It was wrong of me because my mouth can be a weapon if
Yeah.
I don't use the right way. Like
Mhm.
you say, with even, with your dad using those words, my words were still not good either,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I only did that when I felt like I was hurt and in
Yes.
pain, which is still wrong.
Mhm.
It was still wrong.
That's
So
so interesting that you just said that, because I
yeah,
mean, that's why my dad said those things, because he was hurt. Mm.
yes, it's hurt. It's let me tell you that what they say. Even I don't want to jump, but they say little kids are taught racist. You're taught to not like somebody. Little kids, they come out just seeing the world from, but they don't see anything that's
It's pure imagination.
pure imagine.
Pure
Exactly. They're
imagination.
taught. It's a
Yeah.
taught learned behavior. So
Mhm.
I know that people can overcome that and
Yeah.
come through it. And sometimes you just have to see, like how you and I, we connect so much,
Yeah.
but we come from two different worlds, but
Yeah.
still we're the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah.
We're truly the
Yeah.
same. I just wish everybody would feel that way. Cause let me tell you what I used to tell all my friends, because I have close friends that are Caucasian, all different, races. So
Mhm.
I have a twin named Marlene. So
Uh-huh.
Marlene, we used to work at the same company. And I remember one time, I feel like I'm jumping and I want you.
No,
I
no,
want to
you're
see you
fine.
cry.
You're fine.
I remember we worked at the same big company before. And I remember Marlene was, that's when the company was a little bit smaller, but it was still always huge. But this IT person was looking for me. And for some reason, he went to Marlene's desk. He was around Marlene. And Marlene said, "Oh, it's my twin." She said, she works on whatever floor I was on. So when the guy came, he he came to my desk. He looked, he said, "Arlene?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "My twin sent you?" He said,
That is, I
I
mean,
said,
that is,
we have different mothers, different
okay,
fathers.
you're freaking me out right now. You're freaking me out, because I have a twin too. Her name is Nikki. And we actually, a few weeks ago, we went to, there's this really good chicken place called Gus's Fried Chicken. And they came to bring our food or something. And I was like, "Oh, that's my twin sisters." And he was like, "Huh?" And I said, "We have different mothers." And then he was like, "I think different fathers."
Father.
Different fathers. Yeah. It was just, that's so funny.
It is hilarious. But it's just that we know they're taught these things, that people are taught
Yeah.
this. And it's
Yeah.
not, and I know anybody could change their ways if they choose to.
Right. Right. Right.
It's,
And
everything is a choice. It's a
correct.
choice.
And that, let me tell you, that is like my favorite thing about your, like, epiphany I have listening to your podcast, The Path, was healing is a choice.
Yes.
I never realized that. I was like, healing is a freaking choice. It is a freaking choice. It is a choice, one that you are worthy of and deserve. And it's a choice, it's and emotions are choices. Like at any moment you can change how you feel about something. And out, like just me driving today going, like we were talking about before I started recording, was about how I had to go through those things with my father and having a family that was racist. I had to, because all of those years, to see the injustice of it, to now be a vessel to help others, I had to go through that. And so I was like, I'm so grateful that my dad was racist,
No,
and, and also too, kind of a side note on that is like, just, I know, like with my family, I'm not saying this is all white people, but whenever there's a Black issue happening in the news, I was actually thinking about this last night. Let's say the TV's on. Okay, this is my painting a picture for you and my family. Okay, we're all in the living room, and the TV's on, and there's an African-American person on the news talking about what happened and how they're upset. And this is exactly what how my family would react, as, "Oh, another Black person complaining, geez," and then turn off the TV. So I am like, okay, well, I'm a vessel, because, and I actually was talking to one of my African-American friends about this, and she was like, "We're tired." And I said, "You can rest now." Like, let me do it. Let me take over, because it's different, because white people, because I look like a white person, right? So they're going to hear me. they're not
Yeah.
going to hear someone they don't relate to. And that's kind of like with anybody, right? Like if there was, I don't know, a female that was like super harsh or something, I'd be like, oh, I'm not listening to anything that person said. You know what I mean? So,
Mhm.
and it is all ingrained, but yeah. So, it's what's really cool is that we can talk about these things, and you can ask me uncomfortable questions. I can ask you uncomfortable questions. Because that's where the opportunity is, right?
Exactly. And you're right. People will hear you, at least even that white people, they'll listen to you and not someone else. And have you tell it from, even from the perspectives you learn from what we say. And, you know, but the interesting part to me is that, how can I say, it's interesting that people will listen, but then they don't understand, like, you don't, until you walk, you know, a mile in someone's shoes, that you don't really know. And so all you want is someone to listen and just empathize. I know you can't
Right.
understand what it is to be me,
Right.
but I was hoping that after everything, even with George Floyd and everything,
Mhm.
I think, and with and people recording everything, that you would think that people would say, okay, sometimes everybody was not lying, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
because when you say, like they say that, you know, you hear
Yeah.
black,
Yeah.
complaining,
Yeah.
but we're complaining because there was a reason. And trust me, I can be the first one to tell you, I don't believe every story.
Yeah.
I'm a person who know how to use my own mind to say,
Yes.
just
Yes.
because they're black, I don't believe every story, or just because they're
Right.
white, I
Right.
don't believe
Right.
everything about them.
Right.
I get that feeling myself, the same way connecting with a person. I go off of my gut and my feeling, and just like what's right,
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
feel like is right. Because I don't
Yeah.
believe everybody is racist, and just because you may have, you can experience certain things.
Right.
I love to give everybody an opportunity, at least if
Right.
they,
Right.
you know,
And justice looks different for everyone.
everybody.
Right.
It does.
And at the end of the day, we all want to just feel safe, but that
Yes.
safety can look and feel different for everyone. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? So
Exactly. And
I
can I
just,
be clear with one thing too? The one
yeah.
thing I remember, me and my coworker talked about this, and I was so glad she asked me about this. And because she's white, and she was asking me at one point, she's Arlene, with all these killings and with the cops and everything, she was like, she said, what is going on? And the only thing the way I would explain it to her, because everybody, I believe people's stories, because I don't live like every black person. So I can't answer for every black person. So that's why I listen to their stories, and I believe a lot of them are valid. And it's just because I lived in my little bubble, and thankfully in my little country town where we were family and everybody was together. I can't say what happens in someone else's family, of course. But just to the point that I told her, when I have to look at my brother and my nephews, and I see the good men that these men are, not perfect, even with my
Yeah.
dad, let me go back, not perfect people.
Right.
But if a cop looks at them just like they're a piece of nothing,
Yes.
just because of the color of their skin,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
something happens to them, I say, I got
Yeah.
a problem with that,
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
know these are good men.
Yes. Yes.
I
Yes.
just want them to judge them as the person they
Yeah.
see, not
Yes.
as the
Right.
whatever they think, and
Right.
just another black
Right,
man.
right. And this is kind of a cool topic. I love it because I've never really talked about this a lot, because I know a lot of cops, a
Yes.
lot of white cops. And I mean, I just because nurses usually generally marry a cop, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I actually dated one. He was actually African American.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, and him too, the ones I've encountered, they have severe PTSD from their own childhood. Like there is a pattern that I have seen of severe abuse. And
Wow.
so, and I'm talking physical abuse, emotional abuse, of course, shut down your feelings,
Yeah.
you're not allowed to express yourself. Like one of my
Mhm.
friend's husband, like his mom would like pour like hot sauce down his throat,
Yeah.
so that's just the pattern I've seen, is that they have had severe abuse in childhood. So now then they go into a profession to protect, right?
Exactly.
When they're just in fight and flight, is what they are. They're in fight and flight. They're still trying to
Yes.
protect, right?
Yes.
And so whatever that perceived danger is, that they've been taught, ingrained, is this, black person, that's danger, right? They're already at a level that's severe. And then
Mhm.
they see the threat, that's when you're, so if you're already anxious, you can't make, it's hard to think, right? Because your frontal
Exactly.
lobe goes offline
Yes.
and you're
Yeah.
not breathing and all that stuff. So once we talked about that before, slow down
Yeah.
your breathing and then you can make decisions, but they're not breathing. They're just reacting. And
Exactly.
I'm just like, it's all their childhood abuse that like I said, I dated that cop and I mean, he literally had to know where the entrances and exits were.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, what the hell? Like, I've never experienced that. And then like,
Yeah.
we were just getting gas and he was like, and I was looking at my car manual and he was like, you were supposed to be my lookout. And I was like, what are you talking about? It's a Sunday and we're like out of town. And he's
Yeah.
like, anybody could just,
Yeah.
so just the pattern I've seen as an outside person,
Yes.
is that they're all just in fight and flight and they're all PTSD. And
Mhm.
I think it would like to start there, like how many of them have been abused? Let's do a survey, and then how can
Mhm.
we help these men? Because the people like hurt people, right?
People hurt.
And hurt people need the most love,
Of course.
you
I
know?
so agree with that. And you know what? That's when one of my someone I was talking to, she said, you wish it was something more that men will come out and talk. Men talk, I know. There are podcasts out there for men, but I believe there needs to be so much more.
Yeah.
And
And
yours, I know you talk to more men on your podcast.
yes,
love
which
that.
I love it transparent, but I mean, but in my dating stuff, they're always like avoidant. Like they have, if you look at relationship styles, avoidant attachment.
Mhm.
And especially with African American men, they're taught to shut down their feelings. They're never taught, it's okay to, set boundaries or anything like that. And
Yes.
also too, as women and talkers,
Yes.
they come home and they're like, yeah, how was your day? Yeah, I had to deal with it. Well, you should did it. They're going to shut down.
Yeah.
Because they're not getting the space to talk. They need a minute. And it's hard for us because we're like chihuahuas, so,
Exactly.
so it's like, so kind of like learning that, like if instead of us fixing, we don't validate them. That's the problem too. We don't
Yes.
validate them. So, oh, I had to deal with such and such. Well, that sounds really frustrating.
Yes, I agree. I totally agree with that because that's the same thing. I remember hearing this preacher say that same thing too. He said when he comes home, and his wife, when he comes home, his wife is just like, oh, she's just going, this and that. And he said, I just want to know what's for dinner.
Exactly. And by the way, women, we think that men are thinking all these things. Hashtag, they're not that complicated. They're really
They're
not.
not.
They're like if you're like, what's wrong with you? What, you mad at me? Like they're just literally like they're dull. Or you know what I
Yes.
mean? Like when they're like watching TV
Totally
or
agree.
whatever. You know what I mean?
Totally
So
agree.
but we think there's something wrong,
Yeah.
and
And
it's just
nothing
funny.
wrong. They're just like, I just want to sit down.
Yeah, exactly. Well, before we end our episode, our first video episode together, can you
Mhm.
tell the viewers and the listeners how they can find the Path podcast, how they can find you on social media?
Yes, I certainly will. Thank you again. And let me say this because I want to throw this out there in case they listen. I have a lot of cop people in my life too. So shout out to all the cops, the officers, federal,
Yes.
state, everywhere. So we
Yes.
love you all. The ones doing it right. But I do believe they should take tests. Some
Yes.
tests, some of them, just to make sure. So how you can reach me. You can reach me, the Path Podcast, me on all social media platforms. You can find us at the Path_podcast on Instagram and Twitter. And on Facebook, I believe it's just the Path Podcast. So the Path_podcast on Instagram and the Path and Facebook and the Path Podcast on Twitter.
That's
and
awesome.
If you want to email me, you want to be a guest, you want to come on and share your story, because we all have one. I talk to bold women. One day I want to talk to bold men right now, because as you see, Christine is one of those bold women. You can find me at the Path, the number 4, WARD @gmail.com. That's the Path Forward @gmail.com.
I love that. I love that. And we're going to put all of that.
Click and subscribe, please.
I love that. And we're going to put all of that stuff on the screen, and then I'll have it in my show notes. And I had to tell you one last thing before we end. So, I'm spiritual, and I don't know if you heard on my one episode where when you find feathers, that is someone from the other side saying you're going to be fine, or you're on the right path, or whatever it is. So if you ever come to my house, Arlene, which you're totally invited, you'll see little feathers that I have found over the last few years Some
Mhm.
feathers when I really needed a feather, a freaking feather. Sometimes when I was just like, oh, just confirmation. And now I have all my other friends, they find feathers and they send me pictures of feathers.
Yes.
So 2 days ago, I was pulling in my driveway and I was coming home from work. And as I'm pulling in my driveway, I get this alert on my phone about our podcasts. And it like kept alert. It was like a psycho alert. It was like kept alerting. As my garage door opens, I'm like, what is that in the middle of the garage? This huge feather.
You are kidding.
No. It
And
almost
it's
looks
so
like the
pretty.
color of your hair.
Yes. It's so pretty. Like I said, got that ombre kind of going, look like it.
Yeah. I was like, this is the biggest feather I've ever found. So, I mean, it's totally confirmation that you and I are on the right path. And I look
On the right
forward to many more experiences with you. I love you so much. I'm so
I
glad that you
love
reached
you
out to
too,
me.
Christine.
Yeah,
Oh,
we're just getting started, baby. I'm
yes.
excited.
Look out, world. Here we come.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.